Morning, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, first order of business this morning is to convene as the governing body for the Local Contract Review Board. So I'm going to convene the meeting for that. And item number one for LCRB is a county council item and a board order that I'll let Tiffany explain for us.
Tiffany Podlesnik, County Council. This is a board order authorizing Douglas County by and through Salmon Harbor Marina to purchase off-the-shelf model cabins based on soliciting a minimum of 3 informal quotes as a special procurement pursuant to ORS 279B-085. Essentially, this allows Salmon Harbor to purchase these cabins without doing a competitive procurement. They're looking to buy straight out of a catalog. I understand Salmon Harbor has already obtained 3 different quotes from comparable models and has selected the model that happens to be the least expensive and is hoping to purchase up to 8 cabins. And so this is the first step in the process. The next step would be to bring this back to the Board of Commissioners next week for an order to authorize that purchase.
Move to approve the board order.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments? Call for the question. Commissioner Kress?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you. So I'm going to close that meeting and reconvene as the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. And the first item on the agenda is the consent agenda, where we have one item this morning of routine nature. I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or comments? Call for the question. Commissioner Kress?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. Item 2. Citizens' questions or comments on agenda items only. I don't see anyone in the room. Anyone online? Item 3, Juvenile Department Contract Extension. Good morning, Corey. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. Corey Tate, Juvenile Department and Lipstick Coordinator. So before you, you have a second extension with Umpqua Health Management as part of the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission's Impacts Grant Agreement, which is the Mobile Crisis Program. This is for the period of 7/1/24 to 6/30/25 in the amount of $76,604.92. Umpqua Health tracks the cohort members through Oregon Health Plan Emergency Department bills and jail utilization in real time with the Tableau software, which is a data visualization program. This will be administered by a 0.25 FTE. And just so you guys know on the side, we currently have 609 people in their cohort.
Nice.
Move to approve the contract extension.
No second. Questions, comments? Call for the question. Commissioner Kress?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4 is contract with, I don't see James here. Do you want to bump it to the end or see if he shows up?
No, I'll go ahead and do this. It's something we've been working on for quite a while, you know, that roof out there. This is a contract between Douglas County and Rich Rayburn Roofing. The purpose of installing a PVC overlay on a section of the roof out there to stop some of the leakage and fix the roof. It's in the amount of $89,386, and I would move to approve the contract.
I'll second. Questions, comments? Seeing none, call for the question. Commissioner Kress?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. Item 5, Parks Department. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mark Wall, Parks Department. Before you have grant agreement 2422, ATV 2422 between Douglas County and Oregon Park and Rec Department. This can provide $45,000 towards the purchase of a 3/4 ton, which will be used to facilitate operations and maintenance work in Winchester Bay.
Approve the grant agreement.
I second. Questions, comments? Call for the question. Commissioner Kress?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you, sir. Item 6, Planning Department Public Hearing. Good morning, Joshua. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Joshua Shackley, Douglas County Planning. Before you this morning are amendments to the Douglas County Land Use and Development Ordinance, our LUDO, and our comprehensive plan to add the RT20 Rural Transitional 20-acre zone classification to the LUDO and the Rural Transitional Comprehensive Plan designation. This also requires amendments to various findings and policies in the county comp plan as well. The RT 20 zone classification provides a buffer between resource zones and higher intensity uses, and it enables a property owner to separate 20 acres from a parcel and establish a single family dwelling. RT 20 would only be applied to a property after the owner applies for an exception to statewide planning goals 3 and 4, or farm and forest goals, or demonstrates that these goals do not apply. This requires a quasi-judicial plan amendment and zone change process. This matter originally came before the board in March of 2021, at which time the board adopted the Ludo and comp plan amendments. This decision was appealed to the State of Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals in 2022. LUBA remanded the decision back to the county on a sub-assignment of error that the amendments violated statewide land use planning goal 5 and policies found in the Douglas County Comp Plan. The amendments before you today address this sub-assignment of error and require that a property owner address goal 5 resources as part of their process to apply for the RT 20 zone on their property. Before I close my remarks, I want to recognize the work of former director and special projects coordinator with the county, Keith Kubik. His work on this project and assistance completing these amendments. Of course, his work on this issue has gone on for decades now and includes a tremendous effort on the Southern Oregon Regional Pilot Program. Unless the board has questions, I recommend that you open the public hearing and accept the testimony.
I'll open a public hearing, ask if there's any testimony on the matter. Close the public hearing.
Before we deliberate on this and have a motion, we have a rather short agenda. I wouldn't mind asking staff to come up and our special coordinator, Keith Kubik, to maybe give us a little outline exactly what has changed, the history of this and where we're at.
Sure, and
You wanna do that, Keith?
I might have a question or two in the middle of that too.
One more time in the limelight.
Oh, thank you very much. Keith Kubik, Special Projects Coordinator and former Planning Director. And the action that you're taking today is an interesting, it may be a small change to our land use code, but it's a big change to what is recognized in the state of Oregon. I'd just begin by saying Douglas County, when we did our comprehensive planning ages ago, we identified farmland, forest land, rural and urban residential lands, and we had some lands left over. We said, they're none of the above. What do we do with them? And we created a classification called non-resource lands. And we identified, zoned, and had acknowledged by the state non-resource lands. And they were mostly here in the Central Valley. There are ridges like Mount Nebo, there are ridges like above Winchester. There are areas that might, look characteristically sort of like the ridge between Garden Valley and the airport. And those things then, they couldn't be urban. Rural would take an exception to goals 3 and 4, but what we found is goal 3, the agricultural goal, and goal 4, the forest goal, did not apply. That was in our comprehensive plan, acknowledged, and on a case-by-case basis, we were able to add small pieces of land. But the process was horribly onerous, expensive, and Douglas County throughout this years has said, we need to fix that. With that as an introduction, then Douglas County worked with the legislature. Periodically, we proposed a rural lands goal. We proposed legislation that was presented but was not approved by the state legislature. But because of the right pressure at the right time, in May of 2012, the governor's office entered an executive order saying, we'd like to have a regional study of non-resource lands. And as it happened to be, and that will be in Southern Oregon, in Jackson, Josephine, and Douglas County. So through a grant process, which took about 4 years, we came up with the final report about non-resource lands. And the report went to DLCD. They said, we'll take under advisement and we'll do something about it. And 4 years later, nothing had been done. So Douglas County, I would say, because of the courage and also the leadership of our county commissioner, said, we're going to implement this new program, which will allow non-resource lands to be created, and we will create a new zoning classification with a 20-acre minimum that will provide a buffer between urban and rural, farm and forest. That process was adoption, appeal, revision, appeal. There were 2 LUBA appeals and remands, and that was a 4-year process. Followed by a final decision after some time that we should continue. We should address those LUBA concerns because they were specific. And over about a 2-year period, concluding now, the county's done that. And so this is, in a sense, a single zone that's going to require a quasi-judicial plan amendment, but is a monumental recognition in the state of Oregon that non-resource lands exist, that you can identify them in a comprehensive plan, and even though people have to come back on a case-by-case basis, what Douglas County identified and had been doing since 1973 is and can continue to happen.
Keith, that's a great explanation, and the folks that have been around long enough to see this happen, and this literally started before me. Tim and I started here in January of 2015, and you were 3 years into what was then known as the Southern Oregon Regional Pilot Project at that point, and we had to get involved in it and understand what it meant and decide whether or not we were to proceed. And you mentioned a partnership between Douglas and Jackson and Josephine counties, and the sad part about it was during that time, all of the counties were, and we have been for a long time, but sort of strapped for resources.
Correct.
The other 2 counties really didn't put the effort into this project that we did. And because of that, the findings between the 3 counties didn't align, and that really sort of took some horsepower out of what that should have meant to the state. We ended up conducting a very thorough investigation, if you will, about these lands and putting together a very thorough plan, but as a result of that, we ended up being the minority report in the final draft of the Southern Oregon Regional Pilot Project, which I think took a lot of wind out of the sails as far as getting it across the finish line and the significance that it could have meant statewide. But this thing couldn't have happened if we didn't have somebody like you to see it through from the beginning to the end. And, you know, we had a director change in the midst of that, and if you had rode off into the sunset, likely things like this that take 12 to 15 years to get done are sometimes the things that get lost in transition of those leadership changes. So I appreciate you sticking around and helping us see it through. I'm hoping that this is the end or very near the end. My guess is once we make these amendments, LUBA's probably gonna have one final look at it, but we'll see. And I can't thank you enough for sticking it out and helping us get it here.
Yeah, and I agree, you know, this one of those things that you know, there's been times throughout since the 6 years I've been here that we've had a roadblock put up in front of us, and it was, okay, do we continue to pursue this because it looks, you know, increasingly more daunting and difficult, and you know, Keith found a way to navigate through there with the help of the planning department, and we're at a point where I will be very happy to take this one off my whiteboard. You know, it's one of those projects that I hope we see to the end, and then in the future, I hope we have folks that have, we've inventoried these lands, we know what they are. We hope that some of these folks might come in and we get a pilot project soon so that we can just test the waters and see how this works. And but I do appreciate all the work that you guys have done on this, not only you, but the planning department over the years. This has been a big deal. And with that, I would move to adopt the amendments to the Douglas County Land Use and Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan to establish the RT20 or Rural Transitional 20 acre zoning and Rural Transition Comprehensive Plan designation as proposed.
And I'll second. And one last thing, for anyone who might be watching or watching later and wants to understand what this means. Essentially, it takes land that is located within a certain distance, 2 miles, I think, around the perimeter of the city limits, that is currently zoned in an agricultural type zoning with a minimum lot size of 80 acres and allows that to be subdivided into 20 acre parcels. So right now, if you have a piece of property around the outside that's say, 90 acres or 100 acres, and you wanted to put a house on it, you've got to take 80 of that and set it aside with that house lot. Or if you had one that was 70 acres, you can't do anything with it now. That creates a new opportunity for housing. So when you look at it from sort of the 30,000 foot level, you've got this city limits where housing is close together and more compact. This creates a buffer zone around the city where you've got smaller, more spread out. People have called them, mini ranchettes or whatever. And then you go out into the agricultural areas outside the county. And it really makes sense, but it couldn't come at a more important time when housing is a big issue. And one of the biggest issues in the housing problem is land availability. And our statewide approach to land use planning is a hindrance when it comes to land availability to build new homes. And this is going to help with that considerably if we can get to a place where we can actually enact it and make it doable. So thanks for that.
Add something to that.
Mhm.
Since you brought that up, I've had lots of criticism over the time saying, well, this does nothing to help the housing shortage because these are those 20 acre ranches and whatnot, and that's just flat not true. And I'd like everybody to know that when you increase the inventory at any level, it takes the pressure off all levels. You have X amount of people that are going to buy homes, and so this has the potential of increasing the inventory overall, which will ease all throughout all levels. So very grateful that we're getting this done.
Call for the question, Commissioner Kress?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well, motion passes, thank you.
Thank you. It is an expansion of opportunity, but also property rights for those owners that are in the situation that you mentioned. And just to close, the housing opportunity it's a open space housing opportunity for families who might have children and want to do 4-H, but don't want to buy farm and forest lands, can't buy 80 or 160 acres. And then also it does provide a move up. Someone moves up to a larger or a rural home, they leave a vacancy in an urban or rural area.
Absolutely.
Item 7, Public Works Department.
Good morning, Commissioners. Scott Adams, Public Works. Item number 7 is a contract modification, change order number 6 with the Jesse Rodriguez Construction LLC on the Winchester Bay Water and Sewer Improvements Project. This is a time-only contract which extends the contract for 28 days, changing the expiration date from 8/29 of 2024 to 10/8 of 2024. There's some accumulated changes throughout the project that didn't have any dates associated with them. As the project came to closer to completion towards the end, they needed some of that time to get through the Labor Day weekend and some of the holidays and some of our events out there, which helped them complete the project in September.
So I'll move to approve the contract modification since we're well into that time frame.
I'll second. Questions, comments? Call for the question, Commissioner Kress.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well, motion passes. Item number 8, also Public Works.
Again, Scott Adams, Public Works. Item number 8 is an order authorizing Samsara Inc. to perform as needed installation, maintenance, repairs and services of telematics systems to vehicles and equipment owned by Douglas County. This is a Sourcewell contract, quote Q-771373, contract number 020221-SAM.
Approve the order.
One second, questions, comments? Call for the question, Commissioner Kress.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well, motion passes. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Item 9, Sheriff's Department. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Hanlon, Sheriff. The item for you this morning is a public safety communications contract between Douglas County and the Milo Rural Fire Protection District. It's for dispatch services in the amount of $520 and radio services in the amount of $260.
Approve the contract.
I'll second. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, call for the question, Commissioner Kress.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well, motion passes. Thanks, Sheriff. Item 10, Commissioner comments.
Nothing today for me.
Nothing for me either, meeting adjourned.